Hello, Eric the Car Guy here. I have recently gotten a great deal of questions, I think 7 in all, from Nobelheight, who is a recent subscriber to Eric the Car Guy. Rather than responding to each and every one of these questions individually, I'm just going to make this short video because perhaps the rest of the class can benefit from the answers to these questions. The first one I have here is about a fluctuating idle on a Honda Accord LXI. Number one cause of fluctuating idle is low coolant, and these little air pockets in the coolant get into the idle control valve and other places that help control the idle and fool the system into thinking it's hot, then it's cold. It's sort of like coolant just sort of gurgling up through there. The way I bleed a cooling system out is I will install what's called a spill-free funnel and run the car for as long as it takes for the cooling fans to cycle. So, and when I'm running the car, what I also do is I hold the RPM somewhere around 2,000 to 2,500 RPM, and I hold it there for, like I say, until the cooling fans come on. This ensures that the cooling fans are working properly and the thermostat is opening. And here's the most important part of this procedure, is you need to turn the heater all the way to the hot position, but turn the actual fan off. Most important part of the whole procedure. You want to be able to circulate the coolant through the heater core because that's normally where the air pockets get caught. So try that first. But another issue I believe on that particular car is sometimes they had problems with intake gasket leaks. And you can check for this by spraying carburetor cleaner around where the intake gasket meets the cylinder head, and as the car is running. Be careful not to spray it on an ignition source because it will catch on fire. But if the idle smooths out, then you may very well have an intake gasket leak, which could be the source of your fluctuating idle in that case. So vacuum leaks can also cause fluctuating idle. Okay, hot spots on rotors. Big Block Mustang had a real good point on my drum brake video that brakes are basically designed to take speed and turn it into heat. That's their entire design. And in that drum brake video I talked about minimum specifications. Well, there are also minimum specifications on rotors, and you can only machine down to that minimum. But I, like Les Big Block Mustang, subscribe to the theory that the more metal that you remove from something that is designed to deal with a lot of heat, the more you take away its ability to deal with that heat. So in other words, the thinner the metal, the less it's able to deal with the heat, the more likely it is to warp or cause a problem in the future. So I guess what I'm saying to answer your question is can you machine out those hot spots? Depends on how deep they are, to be honest with you. And if you machine it down to the minimum spec, and I would expect it to warp or cause a problem again in the not too distant future. So you may have to replace them. If you're having a continual problem, it may be the quality of the rotors that you're using. It could also be an issue with a sticking brake component, such as a sticking caliper, that's causing it. So it's not releasing properly and being partially applied driving down the road. So there's a lot of different factors that could be the root cause of this. Next, does a leaking power steering hose cause the failure of a Pennsylvania state inspection? In theory, no. I used to have a Pennsylvania state inspection and emissions license, and no, it should not. However, if you have a power steering hose that is leaking directly onto an exhaust component, or any form of oil leak that's leaking onto an exhaust component, they could get you on the fact that that is a fire hazard. So if you've got oil leaking on exhaust components, then that may be an issue there. That's kind of a tricky question, but that's really up to the person doing the inspection. So I guess what I'm saying is yes, that is possible, but don't fault the people for failing you, because really they're trying to cover their own butts and save you from catching on fire. Fuel pump replacement. Do you have to, or if you can't siphon out the gas, what do you do? Some gas tanks actually have a plug on the bottom that you can pull and take out. As far as cycling the fuel pump, as you would put in your question, yes, you could do that, but if the fuel pump is the problem, then you're wasting your time. Really, these are those quote-unquote nightmare scenarios working in this industry, is that yes, of course the fuel pump's going to fail and you're going to have to drop the gas tank and it's going to be full. So you need a really sturdy floor jack, more than one person, pretty much whatever you can do to try to get the gas tank out of there. And yes, you may have to deal with it with a full tank. And that may just be what you have to do. You just may have to deal with it. I know it's heavy and it's cumbersome, and fuel sloshing around in it makes it very difficult. but more than one person usually helps. Bypassing the heater hose or bypassing the heater core, does that affect cooling efficiency? No, it does not at all. In fact, I've done it just recently on a Toyota that had a heater core issue. A gentleman asked me to try and fix it for him without taking his dashboard apart and everything, and I did bypass the heater core. The heater core is really there for your comfort, as the car really could care less. Okay, different color coolants. Now, the way I understand it was, back in the day, engines were pretty much cast iron engines and cylinder heads, but sometime in the 90s, or perhaps even before then, manufacturers began to move more and more towards aluminum as the preferred metal of choice. As a result of this, ethylene glycol, which is traditional green antifreeze, was having chemical reactions with the metal itself, sometimes scoring the inside of the aluminum castings. So different manufacturers came up with different methods to deal with this and came up with their own chemical compounds as a result. So I believe the reason why there are many different colors is because each manufacturer had perhaps their own type of metal that they were using in their engines, whatever. They came up with their own chemical compounds and created their own coolants. The reason why they're different colors, to give you a visual clue of, okay, don't mix this color with this color because it makes something really ugly. There are some universal coolants out there. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that because I'm the type of person who says, well, if a manufacturer went through all the trouble to design something to go in their car, I'm going to use it. So I don't have a whole lot of experience using universal coolants. Lastly, plastic shields. Plastic shields underneath the car and metal shields. Many of the cars that you mentioned that had shields were really off-road type vehicles, and they put those there for a reason. Say you're going over something like rocks or logs or whatever, you don't want that stuff going up, particularly into like your drive belts, things like that. So those shields on off-road vehicles are really there to keep anything from coming up and making contact with the bottom of the engine or any of those spinning parts on the front of the engine in particular, ripping wires or lines or anything like that off, because if you're off-roading, let's face it, you're far away from lots of things, so you really need to be able to think on your feet. As for cars, it's done for aerodynamics. Aerodynamics work in a couple of ways. It's not just air moving over an object, it's the air that moves beneath an object that also dictates its aerodynamics. So they put that shielding underneath there to try to make underneath of the car more aerodynamic than a bunch of rough surfaces, say the bottom of an engine. So they're not doing it necessarily to give you a bad day. Manufacturers don't do that. They usually do things because they have to, and they usually do it in the cheapest way possible. So yes, a plastic shield will suffice as far as an air spoiler going under the car. But that's the reason why you have to take that stuff off in order to get to different things up under there. They're not trying to cover up oil leaks, that kind of deal. It's not going to work, because as you drive down the road, whatever oil leaks on that shield is eventually going to drip off the back of it. So it's going to go somewhere. I hope that answers your questions. Have any more? Feel free, fire away. And the rest of you out there, if you've got other questions, I'll either make a specific video about that, but these were all over the place. And this video might have been a bit long, but I hope you got something from it. You can always visit me at EricTheCarGuy.com. It makes me feel good when people go there. And, you know, stay dirty. See ya.